Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where Kyle Curtin takes you on an extraordinary journey alongside renowned multifamily real estate experts from every corner of the United States. We teach you how to harness the power of real estate investing and witness the transformation of your wealth building strategy. Let's create wealth together.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to today's mini episode of the Creating Wealth Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Curtin, and I'm excited to share a little bit of knowledge today about a topic that I've been thinking about recently, especially because, I've, been in some properties recently, both solo and with some clients that are, have been a bit sketchy, and this is a thought that has come into my mind, and it's something that I want to have a conversation about. So some of you guys that might be listening to this that are in the Creating Wealth Together Facebook group, you might have saw me post about this a few days ago. And basically it's about making sure that you stay safe personally during your showings, whether you're an agent, whether you're an investor, whether you're a wholesaler, whether you're, especially for, traveling by yourself, maybe, in some of these like C- to D minus, types of markets, if it's getting close to nighttime, like maybe you have a later showing and like, you start to see some things that maybe you might not during the day. But yeah, so I wanted to share a bunch of tips that I actually, that folks actually gave, on that Facebook post. And this is going to be something a little bit interesting, guys, because I, have my own little viewpoint on it. But I also have a ton of tips from 3 different people in the group, that gave a lot of value. And I wanted to, shout those out, and, hope that this can be very useful for, some of the folks jumping into the industry for the first time, or even for, seasoned folks as well, as, potentially a nice little reminder. But yeah, so essentially, my thinking here, guys, is like, it's like I said, we're in some of these buildings, particularly multis, which may be occupied, which may be vacant, which may be, in some of these types of markets that might be, have a, show up a good amount on a crime map. You know what I mean? Whether you're looking just for yourself, whether you're looking for clients, there's a lot of different ways that, to skin it, you know what I mean? And a lot of different reasons why that we're in some of these buildings. And like I mentioned, I was in a building in Central Mass a few days ago. In particular, this was the one that really, made me think about this particular topic, by myself. And it was a 4-unit building that was completely vacant. There was also no lock boxes on the doors. They were just unlocked. And the agent told me like, hey, just give it a good old, push, like, to get the door open and give it a good pull on your way out. And yeah, so that was interesting. So some of the tips that I am going to share with you guys, I am going to shout out the folks directly who dropped these awesome, nuggets of value here. And guys, one thing too, is like, I made a huge, list of content, of topics. Then I'm trying to post, one question every single day in the group and kind of give my own little input on it, give other people an opportunity to, jump in and, give their advice and expertise and that type of thing as well. More importantly, and, just try to help people learn, you know what I mean? So if you know anybody that, might be interested in, just learning some advice from, some pretty seasoned investors out there, especially around Middlesex County, Worcester County, Western Mass, Southern New Hampshire, tiny bit of Rhode Island, as well as a few, scattered spots across the US as well. Join the Creating Wealth Together Facebook group because I'm trying to, add as much value as possible, like no BS, like literally just straight education. You know what I mean? But yeah, so let's dig in. So a good friend of mine, shout out to Heather Carroll. She gave a ton of awesome advice that I'm going to list off for you guys. And guys, one thing I want to mention as well is to some people, like this may seem like, like that's just common sense, like you just, you do these things when you go into a place or whatever. But it's not always like that. Especially like I said, when you're in some of these markets and some of these, properties that need a lot of love, and people might be watching you and, if you're by yourself and that type of thing, gotta be careful. But anyway, so shout out to Heather. Some of the tips that she gave are to always knock to announce your presence, even on empty units. And I absolutely stress the even on empty units. Because, 100 million %, if you know that the unit is occupied, you definitely want to announce your presence. That one's kind of a courtesy, but, especially for the empty units. Because this is one of the things, guys, like there are some very talented people out there that, know how to break their way into a building that, may claim to be vacant and hang out in there and do whatever other activities that they might be into. And you never know what kind of guests, surprise guests that you could run into in a unit that's supposed to be completely vacant. So that's one that's absolutely huge. I made a funny comment to her in that post, and I was like, whenever I'm knocking on a, doing something vacant or, even getting into an occupied unit, like, I'll give a good knock and then give a Ayo, and, try to just attract attention if there is any, you know what I mean? So that's a really big one. If possible, always turn the lights on. This is definitely a big one as well. It depends on the property as well. I mean, if you're in a vacant unit, the electricity may or may not be on, to that unit, depending on how long it's been vacant for and kind of what the plan is and et cetera, and that type of thing. Basements are another story too. Not all of them by any means have decent lighting. But any lights that you can turn on, you absolutely should turn on 100%. Because you want to just be aware of what the hell is going on around you in very close proximity, as well as like, if you hear some things like, if you hear a door being opened upstairs, like you want to just basically, this episode is a huge, push on situational awareness when it comes to, walking through buildings, in any way, shape, or form that they might be in. One of the other ones that she mentioned that I really liked was to leave the second egress locked. So basically, one way in, one way out. Most of you, if not all of you guys, know when it comes to, apartments, you need two egresses. So, typically there'll be like, the front door to the unit, and then, there'll be like a back door to either, maybe like a porch or, going into into like a back stairwell, type of thing. And there's typically at least two ways to get in and out of a unit. So you basically want to just control that. So what the heck is going on with who's coming in and who's coming out. One tip that I really liked that she mentioned as well is, especially, more or less with clients, but, if you're doing a showing, to do the same thing, basically lock you and your clients inside the unit, stand near the door, the one door that you came in from, and just, tell your clients like, hey, walk around the unit. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions, like whatever, And so basically, like, you know, you're watching the only way in and out that just got open. So everybody is safe at the same time, you know. One of the other things that I did bring up when I made that post um, is carrying something on you. And I was incredibly curious how a lot of agents and investors thought about this. Um, and I'm not looking to cause any, you know, friggin' political uproar, like, oh, like, you know, someone, you know, should have a gun versus shouldn't have a gun. Like, I don't give a shit, whatever. But basically my point is having some sort of item on you, whether it's pepper spray. Mike Marchetti, shout out to you, brother. He suggested a device called palm spray. I haven't looked it up yet, but definitely, you know, want to look into it and check it out. You know, some folks in the comments as well had their license to carry. You know, always go into areas that are extremely sketchy, concealed carrying. Other people only, you know, conceal carry when it's in a really, really sketchy, you know, neck of the woods. And, you know, to them that shows up on crime maps a good amount, but not all the time, you know, and there's a lot of different types of preference with this type of thing. And that's why I was incredibly curious about what people would think, because there's so many different ways to do it. You know what I mean? I personally, I always carry a knife on me, at least something at very least. I have thought about like a pepper spray. I've had my license to carry for a few years as well, but I've never bought anything with it. Um, if you're listening to this episode and you're in Massachusetts, that carries its own set of you know, variables to keep in mind, and excessive training that, you know, you should have done before doing something like that. Just, you know, in the unlikely event that something was to happen and, you know, the state doesn't come after you as well. So that's something to read into there, guys. But yeah, so the palm spray, pepper spray, always carrying some sort of something on you, whether, you know, someone mentioned a knife and a handgun. Like, you know, like I said, I typically carry a knife on me at the very least, but, you know, I'm curious about other options. And, you know, in, you know, some of these units in, you know, parts of Mass that are not as desirable to some folks, and incredibly desirable to others, you know, that need a lot of love. So something to keep in mind. I also have a bunch of tips here from a good buddy of mine named Mr. Mike Dameri. Shout out to you, brother. One of the things that Mike mentioned that I really liked, and this is definitely something to not be taken for granted, is to always let others know where you're going and roughly how long you will be. This is definitely one of those things, like I said, to not be taken for granted. One thing that you know, you could consider doing as well is doing like the Find My Phone thing if you're on iPhone. I assume it's on Android in some sort of fashion, but I can't confirm that. I don't know. I'm definitely an iPhone guy. But yeah, so something like that, you know, I'd be really into, like, you know, if you're going in a sketchy part of town, and I say that, you know, I say that, you know, in terms of you know, your investment philosophy there as an individual. It might be good to let, you know, a few other people know where you're going, you know, the showing that you're going on, like, just, you know, for people to keep an eye on you, you know what I mean? Know where you're at. You know, if you had the Find My Phone thing, that would probably be a really good addition as well. You know, just to kind of see where you're at and make sure that everything's, you know, going okay, and that type of thing. You know, to pair with that, he mentions check-in texts. You know, like, hey, like, I just got here, or, you know, I'm taking off. Some blend of those two things is pretty good. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's applicable to a lot of different, you know, types of people out there as well, even outside of our industry. You know, like if you have, you know, kids or brother, sister, what have you, you know, you want to have an idea of what's going on, of where they're at, making sure that nothing out of plan, might be going on or anything like that. And that's huge. The biggest one that I touched on a moment ago, that Mike mentioned, is to be aware of your surroundings. So to tie in with everything else, in this little, episode, it's a huge game of situational awareness. You want to keep all your senses open. You want to keep doors locked behind you. You want to, at least have some sort of plan in the event that something unplanned was to randomly pop up. Like, what the hell do you do? Let other people know what's going on. Being aware of your surroundings is definitely a big one, and control as much of the environment as you can by doing, these things, like turning the lights on if possible, knocking on the doors of the empty units, like doing a walk around, and making sure that there's no surprises, behind a closed door or something like that. And it's the biggest thing is just being aware, my friends. Next one, is to be bold in your communication. This one I really liked. Reason being is, like, if you're announcing your presence and, like, you're, stepping with confidence, which is actually, the next bullet point that I was just going to touch on as well. I feel like one could argue, I mean, your presence could be somewhat commanding or, slightly intimidating, to someone that might be, occupying a unit that shouldn't be, or something like that. Like, if you're, you're there for a reason, and, like, you're, I guess, are giving off this, like, confident, strong type of aura, like, you might have a better shot in, unlikely situations than others that might be a bit more timid and that type of thing. But yeah, so the other thing, like I mentioned here, guys, especially when it comes to, like, a license to carry, like, make sure that you study the ever living crap out of the laws. Like, you do everything the way that you're supposed to. You go through as much training as physically possible. If you wanted to kind of go that route and know what you can do versus what you can't do, and when you might have to, when could potentially be the right time to use something versus, the wrong time. And yeah, just keep all these things in mind. But yeah, my friends, that's a bunch of tips. I would love to hear if you guys have any more pieces of advice as well. And this little episode was kind of fun. I might, like I said, I want to keep, no, I'm not going to say that. I am continuing to post, those little value snippets in there, in the group, trying to do every day, and keep it consistent. And, just seeing what advice, other people have, you know what I mean? And you never know. Like, this is one of those things, like I said, that it popped into my mind very recently, because I was in one of these situations where, like, I really had to think about, staying safe and being more intentional than, just kind of letting your subconscious mind take over it. And, maybe not being required to be as present, and intentional about the environment. But yeah. So if you guys like this, definitely send it to a friend. This pretty much applies to everybody in our industry. I mean, that's agents of any sort, that's wholesalers, that's investors of any sort, like, wholesalers, like, I mean, you could even argue, yeah, like, inspectors. Yeah, there's a ton of people that, that this really applies to, you know what I mean? That's in these, in types of properties that may not be the most comfortable for most. But, yeah, so thank you very much, guys. Let me know how you think about this one. Please, if you wouldn't mind spreading this one around a little bit. I feel like, the community kind of gave a bit of value in here, and I'd love to hear what you guys think, So yeah. If you guys could, please leave a rating and a review on the show. means a lot, and helps me, you know, spread the word to other folks to teach them about the industry completely for free. And, you know, try to have people buy some multis, buy some investment properties, and build wealth, my friends. But alrighty, I will talk to you all super soon. Have an absolutely fantastic freaking Wednesday, and I will catch you all in the next one. Goodbye.
That's a wrap for today's episode. We want to thank you for being a valued listener of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Make sure to visit www.creatingwealth.com to connect with us. Dive into our ever-expanding library of informative blogs and explore a wide range of additional valuable resources. Stay tuned for our next episode as we continue to create wealth together.